Finally, I remember when this movie was coming out last year, and then they said it was moving to March, and I was so miserable. I was like, stupid COVID. I would get sick and watch this movie any day of the week. I was like, give me COVID. I would take a shot of COVID and then walk in and watch the movie. But finally, alas, so much waiting. February was the longest month in history. We got to Batman, the Batman. And here are my thoughts. I'm starting with negatives. I have very few. And a few are, and this one's going to be big. I don't really like Bruce Wayne. Robert Pattinson's Bruce Wayne, I was not too into it. I like the Playboy because I like that there are two opposite sides. The actor and then his real self. The self he's trying to sell, the real mask is Bruce Wayne. Batman is the true self. But I'm like, you're the same person, both sides. So it works in a sense of trying to say Bruce Wayne is so psychologically damaged. This is how this guy turns to this. And I believe that. I believe that this is the type of person that would do something like that. Someone who's this destroyed. But at the same time, if I had met you both, there's a funny scene where you meet Bruce Wayne and meet Batman. I was like, I feel like I could tell. Because you just radiate Batman with how dark and moody and just you are. So I didn't really like Robert Pattinson's Bruce Wayne. Other negative? I don't know. Not really negatives. I love the fighting. I love the action. I would always... I want to see him paired up with another martial artist and just get a straight up hand-to-hand martial arts MMA style fight with Batman. Because he never really has that. The closest he got was Dark Knight Rises versus Bane. And that was really just an ass whooping the whole time. But yeah, other than that, I thought this movie was the best Batman movie. The best Batman movie made. Because I think The Dark Knight is a phenomenal masterpiece of a movie. But the best movie that just says Batman feels Batman, the identity is Batman, is straight up just, here's a movie of everything you've seen in the comics. You're going to dive right in. Head first. Right up the ass of the comics. I was like, right into those comics. This was the most Batman feeling Batman. I'm reading a graphic novel, Batman White Knight, where Joker becomes sane. I was like, God, this felt like the Telltale Games. The suit of armor felt like that too. But it was the best tone ever. Most Batman feeling Batman. Robert Pattinson's Batman is definitely my favorite of any Batman. He's probably my least favorite Bruce Wayne. I think Christian Bale might be my favorite Bruce Wayne. But he's my most favorite Batman. He just felt like what I wanted to see. I wanted to see, if you're grounded this in reality, I wanted to see how street level this could get. And it felt almost like Blade Runner to me. The tone felt like Blade Runner. His street level violence weirdly felt like Blade Runner to me. The fact that he could get his ass kicked, that he was getting punched in the face. I'm like, you don't really see Batman get punched in the face by common thugs. He's getting punched in the face. He's getting beat up. I'm like, if he didn't have an armored suit right now, he'd lose. Because he's getting surrounded by all these guys. I like that. I like feeling like Batman. I'm like, oh my God. Batman's giving an ass kicking and taking an ass kicking. I was like, great. That is great. I wanted to see that. Because Christian Bale's Batman Begins. He whoops a bunch of guys. The fighting is so choppy and edited so poorly that you can't even tell what the hell's happening. Dark Knight, he doesn't really fight anybody. Like hand to hand. Barely. And then Dark Knight Rises, he just gets his ass kicked. So you don't see a lot of kung fu fighting from the world's greatest martial artists. So this one, you see a lot of that. But I wanted to go up against another kung fu guy. Bronze Tiger. Lady Shiva. The detective element was no joke. I was like, finally. Every other movie's teased it. Dark Knight Trilogy teased it. But they never really went into it. And I'm like, world's greatest detective? About damn time. Sold it. Whole movie is a straight up mystery. I'm like, David Fincher is probably like watching this movie. Watching this Zodiac and Seven style movie. Very heavily influenced by Seven. You could tell. Well, how this movie felt to me is definitely Seven. Never seen Chinatown, so it's probably Chinatown. And it felt like Blade Runner to me. Had a little hint of narration. Had a very dark city that felt like it had its own personality, its own character. It had the neon lights in the distance. I was like, oh man, this is that fucked up future. Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman. I think she might be the most attractive human being on planet Earth. That's just me. Wonderful Catwoman. Love the Catwoman. Michelle Pfeiffer is the GOAT to me. But Zoe Kravitz beats Anne Hathaway for sure. Anne Hathaway was still good. I don't think there's ever been a bad Catwoman. But Zoe Kravitz sold that Batman Year One Catwoman, living with the other girl, short black bob cut haircut thing, just kind of like walking the streets in that kind of like sexy leather like prostitute outfits and changing wigs and identities. And I was like, that's so like the Batman Year One Catwoman. I loved her role in the movie. She kept bobbing in and out of the storyline. I liked Alfred for the short time he was in this film. Paul Dano's Riddler is horrifying. And I'm like, if you found out that Paul Dano himself was a serial killer, I would believe you. He's so good at playing scary, like whacked out people. One of the things about this Riddler is, even though I love the gangster Riddler, is someone who do this in real life would be very mentally ill to the type of things he's doing. They'd be somewhat psychotic. And he reminded me very much of John Doe from Seven. He had his own outlook on the world. His motivation was phenomenal. I loved his motivation when you find out what it is. I'm like, that's a great motivation. But he was very unhinged, and I like it. I like it. And he very much felt like a real serial killer. He was terrifying. His introduction to this film is straight up scary. I was like, that was straight up scary. This movie's long. To me, since I was so entertained, I didn't care. I was very engaged in the movie the entire time. I had like a 10-minute segment where I wasn't engaged. So I'm like, if you chop anything out, it's a little 10-minute part where I don't care about. I had the worst, most annoying audience members. I had people in my row just on their phones. The guy next to me fell asleep in 30 minutes saying the movie's too long. I'm like, it's been 30 minutes. Overall, oh my God, Gordon, best Gordon. I like Gary Oldman, felt very real. But this Gordon was like, you need this Gordon. Him and Batman were a team. I was like, I need this Gordon. This Gordon gets shit's done. I was like, good. Jeffrey Wright. It's becoming one of my favorite actors. Watch him in French Dispatch. That man could read lines. He's great at speaking. Love him in Hunger Games. But overall, this movie was as good as I wanted it to be. It was as good as I wanted it to be. Beginning, middle, end, as good as I wanted to be. Falcone was so cool. Penguin was in the movie way more than I thought he was going to be. They kept saying, oh, he's barely in the movie. I'm like, no, he's in this fucking movie. He's in this movie, and he plays a great part in this movie. Falcone by John Turturro. Great part. Now they call him Falcone. I'm like, is it Falcone? I got it tricked into my head with the Falcone. I'm like, what the hell is it? John Turturro was great. Every person in this movie, for whatever moments they had, just ate up that scenery. They ate up that screen. They really sold you. Freaking Colin Farrell, if I ran the Oscars, get an Academy Award. Just because I'm like, I would never believe you that you're Colin Farrell. Overall, A+ movie. I needed it to be good. It's one of those movies you need to be good after all this waiting. And I was like, this is the most Batman movie. Love the ending. Some people didn't like the ending. I heard people saying it's like a Return of the King, like it doesn't know when to end. And I kind of saw it barely. I was like, I guess. I just didn't care because I liked it so much. This is my favorite Batman suit. I love the Dark Knight suit, but this is my favorite Batman suit. I would like them to change it a little bit in the next one. Maybe the mask a little bit. The little leathery stitching mask. I think it's cool, but I like it not be stitching. Maybe the horns a little bit. Doot, doot. But there was one scene in this movie that's a spoiler. I'm not going to say what it is. It's definitely like a hint to the future that I could have done without. I was like, I didn't really like that. It's only like 90 seconds long, but I was like, that felt shoehorned in by like a studio. But overall, damn good movie. I think the atmosphere of this movie is the best part of this movie. I've never seen atmosphere done like this. I was like, this is atmospheric to a whole nother level. Tim Burton was the second best atmosphere. Like the Dark Knight trilogy, love it. They were not atmospheric at all. They did not have Gotham as a character. You did not feel Gotham. Kind of in Batman Begins, definitely not in Dark Knight or Dark Knight Rises. Could have been any city. This city sells you on itself in this movie. Matt Reeves crushed the creation of Gotham. Yeah. Love this movie. And I'm going to see it again very soon.